Dr. Dennis R. MacDonald has been dealing with mimesis criticism, the idea that the New Testament gospel authors knew and were utilizing the Greek epic literature from the Greco-Roman world to develop their Jesus story in their gospels. And no one's better at it than Dennis. So I had a conversation with Paula Fredrickson and watched this as it unfolds. Let me know what you think about it, and thank you to everyone who made this possible. We just talked about Robin Faith Walsh. I had to make the exciting claim that, statement that Bart Ehrman thinks that she's on the right track. Even if he might take more into certain directions of some things, he thinks that she's on the right track. Dennis MacDonald thinks she's on the right track. You think that there's something going on here, right? Yeah. And Dennis, he did tell me, and he hopes that the Guild, he says, usually things don't change till scholars die. This is how it is.
Where there's death, there's hope.
When there's death, there's hope. But that his work in mimesis criticism pertaining to including the Greek epics, he's obviously on board with the Hebrew Bible, and he thinks that scholars have kind of like they have like this one-stop shop focus only on the Hebrew Bible, and I get why. Thus saith the Lord, or it is written, and
it's the Old Testament after all, right?
And he's obviously 100% in line with that. He thinks that there may be eclectic things going on as well. We see composite quotations from the Bible, like they'll quote something, but really it's like from this other prophet, and you're like, it's a composition of multiple prophets being quoted, which gets down to the weeds. Sorry to the audience, but it's fun to learn these things. But he also thinks that that Homer underlies this literature, right, that we're talking about with Robin. They're writing in a way, probably a bad word to put this in the genre, but kind of like origin myths or kind of like their own little epics. And Mark ends kind of like a tragedy, right? So you kind of wonder, Dennis, have you read any of his work?
Yes, of course. And also, if you, again, draw the camera back, the foundation of Greek education was Homer and Euripides. I mean, that's where I'm not saying everybody read all of the Iliad, but you would get, tablespoons of Homer to begin to memorize and to unpack grammatically and so on. And look, it's more the Iliad than the Odyssey, but Acts is Odyssey for Christians, right? It's a road trip movie.
I love it. Yeah.
And this idea of the tragic hero in the empty tomb is very, very dramatic. It's very dramatic in Mark to end that way. Whoever added on those extra verses to get it in line with the other Gospels was just really missing the point, because ending with the empty tomb and the frightened women is so powerful. That's dramatic. And again, Greek drama would have been something, if anybody's literate in Greek, and Paul certainly is, they would have passed through that type of education.
So you're not closed off to Greek mimesis. I mean, I'm not saying you buy all of it, okay? Because even me and Dennis, we talk, and he's like, I hope before I die, but it's probably going to be after a long time after I'm gone before anyone's actually accepting this, big spoonfuls of what I'm saying. But he's like, I know that a lot of the things I'll say are weaker than other things. But he uses this one example, and I'll just throw it at you if you haven't heard it, the Eurycleia one, that the anointing of the feet of the woman, and they all are like, they don't know who he is in Mark. And this is what really made me think he's on to something here. I don't know why. You tell me if I'm wrong here. I might be...
I don't know.
Well, I just want to throw the story as like what makes my fire kindle. I'll throw it at you. You tell me what you think of this.
I can honestly say I don't know, because that's not an angle of scholarship I live in.
Right.
And if I said any more than that, I wouldn't be honest.
And I respect that. It's better to not like, I know he's wrong, than it is to say, I don't know.
I don't know.
But it's a beautiful thing if you take into consideration the woman that suckled Odysseus at his birth, and she doesn't recognize him, but then she does by the scar on his heel. And, master, it's you. And she's like washing his feet while this woman's washing Jesus' feet. And Jesus makes this proclamation that wherever my story, my gospel is being said, let this woman, let it be told far and wide. The Greek word is far and wide here to describe, like, make sure this is told everywhere.
Notice the differences too, though. You're saying that it's the washing of Jesus's feet that implies her recognition of who Jesus is. In Odysseus, it's the scar on his leg.
Right.
It's not the bathing of the feet. That's the moment of recognition.
Oh yeah, there's differences for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that.
And people wash feet all the time in antiquity.
Right,
That
I
happens.
just thought it was interesting that the woman's name is Eurycleia in the Odysseus story, which means in Greek far and wide. And this is what Dennis was pointing out. Her name means far and wide, and she's the one washing Odysseus' feet. And then Jesus says this thing where he's like,
Far
wherever
and
my
wide,
gospel is
right.
far and wide. And so, whether you think it's mimesis from, like, I'm looking at a text and I'm copying, or if it's just they're so bathed in this literature and the stories that they're like, Jesus is better than Odysseus.
Well, I mean, what functions like that in our culture is pop music, right? If I said, we don't have to both be listening to Bob Dylan to think you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows.
Exactly.
Right? It's in the air, phrases like that. So it's possible.
Yeah.
It's the best I can do.
Well, I'm thankful that you gave me a chance because, I think that it's encouraging to hear people are trying to understand different, like, angles on this stuff, whether you agree or don't. So thank you so much for
If
this.
we all agreed, it would be a very boring business. There's no danger of that, fortunately.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Thank you to those who contributed in the GoFundMe on making this trip possible for these 12 recordings with Paula Fredrickson. I want to give a special shout out to you. Your names are chiseled in history. I also want to thank everybody who has become a patron of Myth Vision, making stuff like this possible, taking academic work that is hiding behind all of these scholarship, all of these colleges, and making it public knowledge for everybody to learn.